Welcome to the Pastor's Podcast. This is Pastor Scott, and with me is Pastor Ara.
Hi, guys. Hi, Cornerstone.
And Andy Wilson.
Hey, everybody.
You probably have seen on Sunday, Andy is our new Sunday services director. Is that the right? I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think it's either director of Sunday services or Sunday services director.
Okay.
I don't have a preference.
All right. It'd be great if you're like really passionate about one or the other. Yeah. And we just found out right now.
Live on tape.
That's right. On this podcast, we thought we'd just provide an opportunity to get to know Andy a little bit. This is kind of a new experience for us because we it's been a long time if we have ever. I don't think we've ever hired somebody from the outside, particularly for a key kind of public role like our Sunday services director. And so it's a new experience for Andy. It's a new experience for us. And it's a new experience for us as a church family. And so thought this would be a fun way to get to, continue to get to know him. Although we brought you from the outside, Ara.
I was outside and then I came inside.
But you were around for like 3 years before.
Yes.
Yeah, you like came on staff, became a pastor.
Yeah.
But
it was amazing journey. When I met Andy, we went to Persian food. Andy, you loved it.
It was amazing.
We ate a lot.
Yeah, so good.
And then we talk about my experience and how Cornerstone kind of changed my life spiritually, and also to see a very healthy, good church. Which is so different than other churches that I've been. So, and also like people here in Cornerstone, really, I enjoy them.
So Andy's been here 2 months, so now I want to know how Cornerstone changed his life. That's really what I want to.
Let's just get right into it.
No.
So you remember you will get the check pay, your pay in 2 days, 3 days.
Yeah. Well, so no, Andy, why don't you just give us a little bit of background of where you're from, where you grew up, what brought you to LA?
Sure. I'm from Portland, Oregon. I was born and raised there.
Like in Portland, around Portland?
Great question. In and around Portland. My folks lived in Southeast Portland when I was really little. And then we moved to Milwaukee, Oak Grove area, which is like 10 minutes south of Portland.
Okay.
Portland proper, people say. And so I grew up there for most of my life, from second grade through high school.
Okay.
Yeah. And then what brought me to LA was in 2017, I started my doctorate in music at USC.
Okay. Well, so I want to talk some more about that. But first, so growing up in Portland, what did you enjoy doing? Like, what did I enjoy doing?
So in Portland, being from the Northwest, I really love the outdoors. I love to camp. I used to snowboard when I was little.
No more snowboarding?
Well, I hurt my knee. I tore my meniscus.
That'll do it.
And I just don't want to ruin that anymore.
Have you ever been snowboarding, Ara?
No, because in soccer, I got 2 times my knees.
Oh.
Yeah, so I can't. I'm very afraid. But I love to do it, but it's just risky for me.
Have you ever been skiing?
Yeah. But I don't like it. Like how I fell, like I don't like it.
What about sledding? Do you like sledding?
I love sledding. Yeah.
Do you like sledding?
You see, anything like the game that is coming, what do you call, like Six Flags? I got very sick. So I can't
like
do
a roller coaster?
A roller coaster or something like fast is going. It's just my body is not. But I enjoy to see and snowboarding.
Yeah.
I can like
or tubing. Have you ever been tubing?
Yeah, especially with the kids. We try to do it, but I'm not the person.
Okay. All right. So apart from snowboarding, then Andy, what are your favorite? What are your other favorite like winter activities?
Winter activities? Oh wow. Are there winter activities?
I mean, I don't know. You go sledding. You go
ice skating. Sledding,
ice hockey.
I hadn't played. I hadn't been ice skating in a long time. I think the first time I went was in Chicago. I was there for a conference.
Okay.
I want to say, and it was like, anyway, they had that like famous skating rink there. I feel like,
It's always a fun place to learn to ice skate.
Yeah.
You're like out there in the.
There was an ice
public.
rink in my mall growing up, but I just had never really gone. I rollerbladed a lot when I was a kid. So
West LA fact.
yeah.
We have a historic ice rink in Culver City.
Oh, really?
That was there, it's been there for years. Like they like really proud of the ice rink, but it closed down just a few years ago.
Oh,
It was
no.
really sad.
Ah.
And so they preserved the outside of it,
Mhm.
like the facade. And they still have the sign up that says, ice skating or ice rink.
Yeah.
And it's a hardware store.
Okay.
Like it still looks like an ice rink from the outside. It's one of the most random,
That's so funny.
like historical preservation. Like
It's a historical hardware store.
It's right. It's right.
I in that same vein, I like to go roller skating when I was a kid, back when roller rinks were a thing. Had many birthdays there. Got my first pair of Nikes stolen from one of those places in 6th grade. It was very sad.
I would say that sounds like a traumatic memory.
It was, yeah. It was the first time my parents bought me like actually nice basketball shoes, and they got stolen. They had lockers. I just didn't use them because no one used lockers. They just put their shoes under the benches.
Yeah.
Everyone, every single person.
All right, so back to summer activities. So you like hiking, you like getting outdoors.
Yeah, outdoors stuff, anything outdoors. I love to set up camp for like 4 days and just live off the land and cook really nice food.
I was gonna say, by live off the land.
Just no electricity, solar power.
Yeah.
Solar power is fine.
Andy, just let you know, I'm not a winter sport, and also I'm not camping guy.
Okay, good to know.
If somebody comes with me,
Yeah.
like they had some experience before some of the members, like I'm not a camping guy.
Got it. Good to know.
So sorry.
Good to know.
See, we've connected about this.
Yeah.
But Ara has he tried it this last year.
Still, I cannot go out with you.
Really? You know what's funny is
So, but I know you love Iranian food, so that's
I do.
You
common.
can do that.
It's a
You can
positive.
do that.
A plus. Meeting people in California that don't like to camp is kind of odd to me.
Really?
Like, because everyone at home is just like, hey, you want to go camping? Yeah, let's go. I have all the stuff ready to go.
Yeah.
Just like, I mean, there's an episode of Portlandia about it.
like our entire staff.
Yeah.
Like this is why I was so excited to connect with you. I was like, finally.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Just some people don't like being outdoors.
Brian does not go camping.
Yeah.
Matt does not go camping.
You
Jose goes camping in a like pop-up trailer,
Okay.
Sure.
but that's like about it.
Yeah.
So you can put my name.
Ara does not go camping.
Yes, definitely.
Steph Moss does not go camping.
I mean, I do bring a queen size air mattress. So, and I have a tent that I can stand up in, which I like.
Nice.
Hey, you know what? That works.
Yeah.
That works. Okay, so you mentioned Portlandia. I was gonna ask about Portlandia earlier, but I've never seen it, and so I didn't know if it was an appropriate show to mention on the podcast.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I've only seen a couple episodes of it, but the ones that I have seen are, they're appropriate. I'd say.
And
think.
is
I
it? But well, that's fine. Is it consistent with your experience of Portland?
Yes, it's definitely a satirized version of it.
Fair enough.
And it's a little over the top, but the points are right on for sure. There's an episode I think where they're at a like an organic restaurant, and there's a chicken on the menu, and they give like a full detailed list of like the name of the chicken, where it was raised, who raised it, all this stuff. Another one that's really good is Got to Get the Gear. It just, they're coming up with all these kind of Portland activities, and they're like, oh well, we need to get fleeces for that, fleece vests, or like just all this stuff that you can get at REI, basically.
Yeah.
Just like, and then they end up with at least 5 layers of clothing and equipment on their bodies, and it's really funny because that's how people are. They're like, yeah, I've so much stuff. Like, I have a closet at home that is full of camping gear. And then I have a storage unit above my car that is full of camping gear.
So, Cornerstone people, if you need anything for camping, you can borrow from Andy.
That's right.
I can teach you how to survive outdoors for a couple days.
I always feel like I'm not a big shopper, but like REI is my weak spot.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like getting out of there without something in my hand is like a gigantic
When
victory.
I saw your Yeti mug, my first couple weeks here, I was coveting it. So I had to do my first John 1:9 and rebound my sins.
All right. So going from the, service level external a little bit deeper, how How did you first come to know Christ? Did you grow up in the church?
Yeah.
Okay.
I grew up in church. I've been going to church my entire life. I think I was 6 when I figured out what being a Christian or being saved was. And I think I gave my life to Christ then, but I was also 6.
Yeah.
And then I was baptized when I was 13, I think. Or it's either 13 or 15, I can't remember. And that was, I think, more of it's a public declaration, but I think for me, it was definitely more of a conscious decision. You know what I mean? But yeah, I grew up in the church. My whole family has been going to church for as long as I can remember. Yeah, it's always been a part of my life.
What was your journey like? Like, I don't know, from that, 6, 13, I think, you get baptized at 13. But then there's like, college and everything else like that. Like what has that faith journey entailed?
Let's see here. So when I was baptized, I was going to a church called Milwaukee Christian Church, Milwaukee, which is the name of the town that I grew up in, depending on what side of the town you're in. It was either Oak Grove or Milwaukee. Both addresses work if you want to mail my parents something. And so I was going there with my best friend, Dan Rue, and we started going there to the youth group and camp. I eventually went to camp with that church, and that was my first experience with camp too. The church I grew up in was a smaller church. My folks still go to church with those people, and there wasn't like a youth group. It was Sunday school, and we would have Sunday school, and we would sing hymns, take notes, be really in depth with Bible doctrine, and it was a great way to get a good foundation for biblical knowledge at such a young age too, which doesn't really happen all that often. And then I went to church with my friend Dan, and I was like, I walked into the youth room, and I'm like, what is this place? What is this chaos? There's different colored paint on the walls. There's couches. There's a drum set. And I was just like, what is it? Because it was so foreign to me. And so I started going there more often. My parents would take me to church there and then go to their church. Or sometimes I would get a ride with my buddy Dan. And then, of course, when I turned 16, I drove myself. But the fact that they were so willing to drive me this completely separate place to go to church, because that's where I was feeling like I wanted to go to church, it was amazing. And looking back, I didn't realize at the time the many sacrifices my parents made for me and my sister. And so, yeah, I did that. And then I ended up leading worship there, actually, at when I was probably 15 or 16. I had played guitar.
Okay, so I was going to ask when that...
Yeah, it was definitely started. Around that time. I picked up guitar in 5th grade with my friend Tony Cornella and my friend Kyle McCrate. He played bass. And we just kind of jammed around, and it was fun. And then when I found myself there, I can't remember how it happened. I either said that I was available.
Were you playing guitar?
Yeah, playing guitar, yeah. I either said I was available, or someone didn't show up, or I can't remember. But anyway, and so we started a youth band, and I sort of led the youth worship band. And then once or twice a year, we led worship in big church. And just kind of started doing contemporary worship stuff there. And yeah.
What were you exposed to contemporary worship at the church you grew up in with your parents?
I would say no.
Okay.
The most contemporary thing I would say is like the Gaither Vocal Band, which I love. They're amazing. My dad loves them too. But that's, compared to the music we were doing there, that's probably more contemporary in quotes, but not really, no.
Okay.
It wasn't until I went to camp with that church that I was going to where I experienced worship with a guitar and a drum set and all that.
Andy, how many brothers and sisters you have?
I have one sister.
One sister, older than you?
Older than me, yep.
So she lives in...
she lives in Portland. With her family.
So anybody in your family, I'm curious, to see if there is any musician in your family that play guitar or anything.
Yeah, sort of. I would say a lot of people dabble, but no one's a professional musician or anything. My mom plays piano at church, or played for many years. My dad played trombone growing up, which I think his trombone is still in the garage somewhere.
Do you know I played the trombone?
I did not know
I don't
that.
think you knew this, are.
Which one is
Yeah, this one.
Wow.
Out and back. Yeah.
cool?
This one on the radio.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you.
For 2 years in middle school.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a sweet time.
I picked it up once.
So what about your sister?
My sister, she sings, but not like, a lot.
Is it right? Like you have to have that what do you call that blood in the music in your family,
Like genetically? you
yeah.
mean? No, I would say, I think maybe.
You don't think so?
No, I think talent is a myth, personally, in my professional opinion.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, explain.
So, okay. There's a lot of people who say they can't sing, and it's for a few reasons. Either they don't know how to breathe properly, they don't know how to resonate properly with their mouth, their face, and all that, and then confidence, which is usually the biggest one. At some point in their life, they were told that they can't sing by someone who didn't know what they were doing, or they were lazy, or didn't have good pedagogy, or who knows. But honestly, like there are certain physiological advantages that people might have, just like in sports,
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it comes down to hard work and guidance. Like those extra things that might cause you to say someone's talented in that way. Like they just had those things that lined up in their body and work without trying.
So it is like easier for some people.
Yeah, for some people, but you can totally learn that too.
Okay.
And sometimes it's a lot of stripping things away, because we, especially and I'll say as an American person who speaks the way that we do in America, or at least in this part of the country, we tend to speak down here, back, whereas like in other parts of the country or of the world, like say in like Britain, like they speak up here, and it's so much more conducive to actual singing, because when you talk back here like this, you can't sing, you can't project. It's like there's your body's working against you in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, like, this is a serious question? Do you think like Pastor Matt can sing?
I think so.
But his body is not showing that.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, I think we should put him on the room mic on a Sunday and see what happens.
Let's see.
But yeah, no, he asked me for voice lessons. I don't know if he was joking or not. I'm still trying to figure out when he's being sarcastic and when he's not.
He's already working on it.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I don't know, man. I think if you took him up on it, and he might be like, oh, thanks. I really appreciate that. But if you're like, no, you can't. He's like, oh, that's cool. I was just joking.
Yeah.
You gotta. The ambiguity helps.
Yeah, I mean, like if you give me 30 minutes with somebody who thinks that they can't sing, I could probably get them to sing in tune. And I know that sounds cocky. I don't mean it that way. I just mean like there's certain things that you can just do as long as they're willing to put themselves out there and risk that. Should be pretty easy.
Okay, so I'm more recently absolutely convinced of this. So, and I don't think he's going to mind me telling this story, but my oldest Harper, he's 15. You've met him. He's always said, he's come to believe, I don't know, maybe it's my fault that he can't sing. And he loves acting, loves theater, but he always said, I'm not going to be a part of a school musical. Like I'll be on crew or whatever, but I'm not going to be a part of it. And he's like, unless it's like one of my favorites. And his school was doing Les Mis this year. And he's like, oh, dang it. I have to audition. And he has a piano teacher who also does some vocal stuff. And I mean, it was only a couple of weeks between when they got like assignments and the auditions. And he went from like not being able to hold a tune at all to like hitting all the notes. Now, I don't think he got cast. And because 2 weeks is a really small sample size.
Sure, yeah.
But the change in there, I was stunned by the amount of growth that happened in those couple of weeks. And a lot of it was even just his willingness to put himself out there and be like, I'm really going to actually try this. And I was shocked at the amount of growth in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's amazing when you have intentionality behind something that you and the fact that you love something. You're somehow so much more motivated to do the thing. And with singing, there's this phenomenon where it's that in the moment thing when you're in the moment, everything's just clicking and you're in the zone. It just somehow everything lines up, like your brain, your body, your breath, your actual singing voice. It happens in every instrument, but because the singing voice is part of your body, it's so much more personal. And that's part of the reason why when people are told they can't sing, it's a double, triple whammy. It's not just like, hey, you're not very good at guitar playing. It's like, because people tend to take it personally because like, this is me, this is how I can't change this, but you can. And so yeah, when you get into a place where you're like, I love this with every fiber of my being, these walls tend to come falling down, and you can just do things. And I think that's probably what happened when he had, because you said it was one of his favorite musicals, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, there's a lot going on with the teenage voice.
Well, that's the other side to this, right? Yeah, he's like,
it's utter chaos.
Totally. So, and which is what actually, I mean, I told him this, like, what made me so impressed about the whole thing. It wasn't about like the part or not, but like putting the work in and seeing the growth. And in the midst of that, like, I'm like, dude, that's another thing.
Huge
win.
Is people don't realize that it takes so much work and concentration to sing properly and well. They think it's, well, it is an extension of the speaking voice, but it's on a completely different level. And so you have to put what people don't realize is a lot more effort and intention into doing it.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked a little bit about your journey and the high school, everything like that. What was your faith journey like through college and beyond?
Let's see here. So in college, I went to a labeled Methodist university. However, it wasn't very Methodist. And I found myself not really going to church much in college. I went on occasion because I had people that I knew that were directing choirs at various places, and it wasn't a huge part of my life back then. I don't know why. I wasn't feeling led to go to church. I was still in my faith, and I don't know. It could have just been maybe I thought I was too busy. I don't know. It's hard to say. But yeah, through college, I didn't really go to church much. But I'm so thankful that I didn't like fall away from the church, because a lot of people who are in that age group definitely fall away or come back later. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then let's see here. I went to grad school after that for the first time, and
what was grad school for again?
I went to grad school the first time for choral conducting, Masters of Choral Conducting.
Okay.
And that was up in Washington. And I ended up opening a church actually I didn't open it. I came on as the new worship leader for a very newly planted church, or maybe it was independent. I don't know. It was a Nazarene church called the River, I think it was. And I was with them very briefly, but that was my first, I guess, probably real worship leading job that was not volunteer, and did that. And then the economy crashed in 2008, and so I didn't leave. And so eventually, closely after that, then I came back to Portland, and then I was a brief period in between, and then I went back to my undergrad, Willamette University, go Bearcats, and I did the Master's in Teaching program there, so I could get licensed in Oregon and teach public school.
And you did teach some, yeah.
Yeah, I taught for 2 or so years at McNary High School in Kaiser, Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah, which is I held that job concurrently with my job at Salem First Presbyterian Church.
Okay. And you led worship at Salem First Presbyterian for 7 years?
I think 7 years, yeah.
7 years.
7, yeah, I want to say.
Yeah. And then I think this is really interesting. Then you came down to LA to go to USC.
Yep.
For a doctorate in sacred music.
A doctorate in choral and sacred music, yes.
Okay, doctorate in choral and sacred music. I think most people, I even think most people in our church don't know that exists.
Yeah, I would say that's probably accurate.
What is a doctorate in choral and sacred music? Like what are you studying? What is that? What's that about?
So it's basically at this level, it's how to be a collegiate choral conductor or a professional choral conductor, essentially. And so you take conducting classes. It's like a lab where you have you and your friends, and they sing back to you, and you workshop like how you move your body, what you do with your face, how you hold your body, how you what your fingers do, what your elbows do, what your shoulders do, how fast, how slow, how all this different, basically nonverbal language stuff, which is really fun, interesting. Really makes you think about what you do with your body every day, you know. And my professor, who taught me there, she also one of her research topics is connecting dance theory to movement and conducting. And so it was really cool to see how she incorporated that into our lessons. It's really neat. And then you take voice lessons. You take private conducting lessons, so one-on-one with a professor. You're in ensembles, various choral groups at the university. You take history classes, so music history. So that's basically like the last 600 years of Western choral music. There's some classes on leadership and developing like teams, ensembles, like creating a program, essentially.
So was it sacred music simply because that's what most choral music was historically? Or what was the sacred music component?
So in the degree in the 21st century, it's basically learning how to be the director of music at a church, and whether that's a Christian church or a synagogue or anything really. Like they teach us different faith traditions and like kind of the calendar and how it all works and what elements of the service like come into play when they came into play, like what century like this or that particular part of the like the mass or the requiem or something comes into play, and it kind of like learning sacred music history. Where did hymns come from? Who wrote hymns? How they traveled throughout the world via missionaries, different people from the United States, and where they influenced and how that traveled across America. What books, what hymnals came with them on the wagon trains, stuff like that. Like what version of this one, came through. And then just like what it's like working in a church, kind of like, this is, the structure, and this is how your life will be. This is who you'll talk to, the administration, working with an organist. Are you an organist? A lot of choral directors are also organists, and they fill both roles, and stuff like that.
Interesting.
I would say, yeah. The sacred music part is, and you just kind of study where everything came from that a lot of people don't really realize, that people rarely get the chance to delve into the specifics of things. Like,
for example, this morning I was looking at Amazing Grace song. So where it came from and how it was amazing. Like the lyrics, I know the name, like we know the name, but we don't know what melody came, how that came, and this documentary talk about like this melody at Amazing Grace came from slaves, and it was amazing. And this guy was singing how they sing in that day. It was like mind blowing. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot of that, like where the melody came from. Like sometimes the melody has a particular organic origin like that. Sometimes it used to be a bar song, like that people would sing in the pub. So the church leaders were like, well, how are we going to get people to sing?
Well, these are the songs they know.
This is what they know. So they, I always thought that was kind of funny. But and then people who wrote them, like just like any author or composer, there's people who write hymns, and they have historically.
How many instruments you're playing? Like you can play how many instruments?
Oh, instruments. Let's see. I always say I play piano, guitar, bass, and drums. I consider my voice my main instrument, and also conducting. I consider conducting an instrument as well.
But what about other like instruments?
Other stuff. I mean,
like clarinet.
Yeah.
Clarinet.
So growing up, I took lessons for basically every instrument. So I can make a sound on most instruments. I could probably play a scale on most instruments. But I didn't train to be a band director or an orchestral like director in high school, so I don't play all of them.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I can play the trombone, you know, various different things, but
So my daughter is 4th grade right now, and she brought the flute. I said, Dad, can you make sound? And I said, yeah, sure. And I thought it's easy, so I tried to do it. I couldn't do it. I said, Dad, why you're saying, like, it was hard. Like, so
I know
one.
of more than one aspiring, like young, you know, aspiring oboists in our church. So we may have to, we may have to try to figure out how we get the oboe into, you don't even know what an oboe is, do you?
No, maybe an English name, I don't know.
It's the small instrument, double reed. It looks kind of like a clarinet, but it has a smaller, and it's what they used to tune the orchestra. They play the A that everyone tunes to at the beginning.
I don't know.
Okay, so I mean, it's interesting to me, and we've had this conversation, right? But after all of that time and study and things like that, what led you to want to still work at a church, and as opposed to, you know, teaching or doing research or, you know, I know we've had this conversation, but I think it's.
I think I wouldn't say it's any sort of substitution. It's just one of the facets of what I want to pursue in my life as a musician and as a Christian. I think my ultimate goal would be to have a college job where I'm teaching, and I'll get to do academic research as well as teach students, and also hold concurrently with a church job and be the director of music somewhere, and to have that kind of be my career. So I think of it, it's just part of it's always been a part of my life, and it's something that I enjoy, and I think it's something that is essential for my spiritual development to be involved wherever I am musically in my church.
I so appreciate that, right? Because I think I think at different times there's probably a natural gravity to separate those.
Yeah, for sure. I think so.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that, I mean, it's interesting how one's life plays out. You know, like I didn't know 6 months ago I would be in LA still.
Yeah, totally.
You know, and then this position came up, and I'm like, well, I'll throw my hat in there.
Yeah.
And I genuinely had a foot out the door. Like if I didn't get this job, I was probably going to be in Oregon right now. Just like living in my parents' basement.
I remember this conversation. All right, so what's from your vantage point then? Like what's the experience of getting to know Cornerstone been like? Like is it exactly what they told you it's like in your doctoral program? Or like,
it's been amazing, really. It's the one thing, and Ara touched on this a little bit ago, is the culture here is so incredible and healthy, and it's just made my experience here so much easier to figure out the ins and outs of this particular job. Like there's, of course, all the things that I would normally think and do and prepare for and plan for and
totally
enact out in this role, but it's just learning how things work at Cornerstone. Yeah, it's been really great so far. Yeah.
I don't know if you know how to answer this even on a podcast.
Okay.
But what's been the hardest part of that transition?
Hardest part of that transition,
or yeah.
I think because Cornerstone has so many affable and competent musicians who are volunteers on the worship teams. I'm used to leading worship every Sunday, like 2 services every Sunday.
Yeah.
Classic service with choir, conducting, organ, the whole 9 yards, hymns, and then I would do a second service, which would be with the rock band, and we would lead contemporary worship. And so not leading every week has been difficult, just for me as a musician. Like I like making music. It's something that connects me to God in that way. And so kind of being in a bit more of a supervisory role or a coaching role where I could, sort of observe, get to know people, and just kind of see where their gifts are and where I could step in and maybe help them or coach them or guide them in some way. So it's been kind of nice to step back to have that vantage point. But also it's been kind of odd because I'm not used to that. So it's a unique thing for sure.
Totally. What, I would love to hear you talk just a little bit more even just in this role, as we think about it in the life of the church, like why is corporate musical worship so important to the life of a church? And to be fair, I didn't give Andy any questions. I'm like, hey, let's podcast. Let's sit down. And so I haven't given you any time to think about this. But I mean, as you've, I'm sure, thought about it at least generally and over the years. But why is singing together? What do you think it's important for us to do?
Well, that's a big question. I think, well, there's a number of ways to answer this. I mean, first of all, we're called to in the Bible to do this.
Totally.
So that's the easy answer. But I think what people figured out a long time ago is that when you sing together, there's this sort of symbiotic thing that happens in the room, and you end up kind of in the same space. It's a little esoteric, but
yeah.
I mean, there are studies that prove that when you sing together, that people's heartbeats sync up, and that's, you know, a real thing. But really, it's more of, it's like being on any team, being in an ensemble, being a church, a congregational singing. It's like you're all doing a thing together, and you can't do it without everyone. Like it's such a massive thing that's happening. And when you break it down and you think about it, you're like, wow, this is incredible. All of these people are in this room together for the same reason, singing this song. And you, one of the things I love about Cornerstone is people sing here. A lot of churches, people don't sing, and you have to drag it out of them, or teach them how to worship, or teach them to let go, or whatever. But it's, I think, probably one of the best parts about being a worship leader is when you can hear the congregation singing over the band. That is just amazing. Like it's hard to continue for me because I get choked up when I hear that, when I see that. And the same thing happens in basically any healthy musical setting, whether it's a band, whether it's a choir. And I think when people sing together, it tends to bring about a sense of, what's the word? Accountability in each other's lives, especially for choral stuff. I'm just going to use choral in this case, but it applies to everything. Like when you're involved in a team, a group, an ensemble, a choir, a band, you had this accountability that's sort of built in these healthy situations where if you need something, you've got someone to call upon, just like a church is for a lot of people, you know. And if you need help, if you're struggling with something, you know, like when you sing together, there's this sort of unwritten bond that you have. And to me, it keeps, I think, the reason I do this is I think that making music together with people is what keeps us mentally healthy in a lot of ways.
Andy, as I mentioned before, like I start making music, especially in visual side, and bring the team together, and I realized like the art and the music and the visual, like music video with the good quality and meaningful quality, which is opposite of what the world is giving us every day. There's no hope, there's broken relationship, there's cursing in the music. So I realize, like I'm not musician, but like I love doing this, helping and bringing people together, especially in Farsi, that there is no resources like English speakers. And I find out how like connect to people, how different group of people in different countries, the connected the music, as you mentioned. My question is like, you know, this is like significant place in Cornerstone is different family. We call like one church with the 3 languages. And my question is how, Andy, I know you are like, your responsibility is Sunday service, but I'm thinking like we have Andy here, and I know there's lots of shortest like to understand the music, to understand the worship, to understand like lots of like Persian Christian, they're trying to kind of copy Hillsong or Bethel, and they're trying to do that. and it's just not good. And I want to see how Andy can help this church, which is include Hispanic, include Persian. Like I don't want to overwhelm you, but in your vision, do you learn the culture, how Andy can help in the process?
Yeah, I think that's one of the super unique things about Cornerstone is that there's 2 other families here. And I would love to. I mean, if there's an opportunity for me to guide or to coach or to, take anyone who's doing music stuff in any one of those, I'd be happy to come in and just, I don't know, do a thing. I'm curious to learn also about the Farsi stuff, because the music is different than what most Western music. The scales are different. The structure, I think, and depending on if they're kind of emulating the Western style or if there's elements that are being worked in. It's hard to say, but yeah, I'd love to see it and try it out.
Appreciate
for
it.
sure.
I think it's so. This is so interesting because I think this is something you see in the Farsi music world that you're so engaged in. I think this is like what you're talking about. That there is something unique that God has created in the context of music. This is why we're called to sing hymns and songs and hymns and spiritual songs to one another, right? And I admit, like, there have been times in my life when I've looked at that and been like, "What? Why don't we just say it, right? Why don't we just explain it? You know, like why put it to music? Like what does that gain us? But it gains us something very real, tangible that God has created in the expression of things through art forms and through the unique art form that is music, and particularly singing together. That does, if the goal is to renew, or if the ultimate way we are transformed more and more and becoming more like Christ is through the renewing of our minds. That's not just memorizing or reciting truths, although that's part of it. It's part of being reminded of truths. But part of the renewing of our minds happens as we sing those truths, as we sing those truths together, as we declare them, as we, declare on a Sunday morning, "It is well with my soul," when earlier that morning, that's not really how I was feeling. Right.
Totally. And I think it's interesting that when you sing something, a text or a melody, it tends to stick with you because it creates different pathways in your brain too than just regular speaking. And then you take that throughout the week with you and you're humming it maybe, and it reminds you of that, and or maybe the particular text that is being sung is connecting with you for whatever reason, for whatever's going on in your life that week. Or maybe it reminds you of what state you were in at church that Sunday when you had that feeling. And it either reminds you of how you developed, how you grew, how you dealt with such a thing, or maybe you were just experiencing joy or something. I don't know. It's hard to say because we all experience church and worship in different ways. And it's always fascinating to me when the Holy Spirit moves and someone in the congregation needed one line from one song. And to you, maybe it was, quickly passed over. But when this happens, it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. Like when I was programming this music and then all of a sudden God uses it in this way, and it's just incredible.
One of the things that really drew me to go after making music for Farsi speakers, it was how my wife became Christian. So our church in Iran was kind of, if you come to the church in that day, you have to repent. Like they force you to repent. It's kind of, come. Jesus loves you. And my wife, I was pastor. My wife was just coming to the church. And she was like, no, I don't want it. Until she gave her heart through the worship song. And that changed her life deeply. That song deeply go to her heart, and she just accept Jesus, which is for me, I said, that's very important that God put in our life and the church life. So
It's undeniable
I appreciate it.
The impact that it could have.
Yeah. Amazing.
Well, man, I really appreciate this. Thanks so much for, I mean, this is just like a little bit of snippet of an opportunity to connect, but and to connect with the broader church. I'm really excited that you're here. I'm excited for
Thanks.
you and for your life and for your
too.
heart. I'm also excited for our church and for me to be led in music by you, to have our that aspect of our worship and our corporate gatherings together being shaped by you. And I'm super thankful for how the Lord did,
Brought me here. For
brought
sure.
you here. This guy,
Yeah.
it was absolutely him. And so super excited for that. And for those of you listening too, I would encourage you to, introduce yourself to Andy when you see him around. I know he's
please do.
he's still meeting people. He's like, it's hard. So you take the step. Say hi to Andy.
Yeah. Say hi and I mean,
remind him of your name.
Remind me of your name, please. Right away. That'd be great. Also, like if I see you with a mask on, I might not recognize you the next day.
Totally.
Oh, also, if you friend me on Facebook, and I might not remember who I met, especially if you had a mask on. So just give me a wave. Send me a message. Say, hey, I'm so-and-so from church. Because otherwise I'm like...
And also, Andy,
Are you getting bombarded with a random Facebook?
Yeah,
You're
kind
like,
of.
Yeah, that happens.
And I want to make sure I shake people's hands and look them in the eye until I friend them back. Because I'm like, I want to make sure that I connect with these folks.
Like I was like, if I want to compare you, like when I'm seeing you, and especially like 2 Sunday ago, like you were the first time singing on stage, and I hear your voice and all the setup and the music. I really, really enjoy it.
Thank you.
And it's not only like I've been in the world of musician. Some musician they're trying to do performance, and some musician trying to do worship. And I see that you were doing the worship with a good music, and I don't know about Asaph in Old Testament, and Asaph wrote a few psalms. Because I'm very interested in the music and art in the Bible, so I'm kind of comparing you when I'm seeing you as Asaph, because in my head, the Asaph was leader of leaders of the musician and worshippers. So he was handsome. He could play any instrument, and he was leading the God's family to worship. And I think when I'm seeing you, remind me Asaph.
And Asaph had a red beard. So this is, it's really uncanny. It's really.
What are the odds? What are the odds?
So you can call Asaph Andy.
That's right.
There you go. My Cornerstone nickname.
That's right. Awesome, man. Well, thanks so much. Thanks for taking the time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
God bless you.
Thank you. And thank you for listening. We love you, and we will see you singing together on Sunday.
Amen.
Take care.